Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Saint-Saëns recordings. Now, why don't people think of Saint-Saëns when they think of lists of great composers? As often as not. I think it's all Tovey's fault. The great British musicologist, critic, whatever, writer on music, conductor, composer. He said Saint-Saëns was the greatest composer who wasn't a genius. And his attitude toward the man was so dismissive, not quite contemptuous, as it was in Tovey's view of Liszt, but pretty obnoxious. And, largely because Tovey was English and Saint-Saëns was French. It explains everything. But the fact of the matter is Saint-Saëns was a tremendous composer, brilliant, creative, wonderfully mellifluous. He had a fundamental conservatism about him, which did not prevent him from being formally quite original. Harmonically, maybe he wasn't so radical, but he was a friend of Liszt. They were best buds, and he was open to a lot of things, at least until his last years. And it may be that because he was a child genius, he was one of those prodigy types, he formed his style fairly early on and stuck with it. And we aren't very kind to composers who don't continually evolve. Now, don't get me wrong. I love people who continually evolve. Haydn is the ultimate continual evolutionary, and Beethoven did the same thing. And so we admire them. We admire their constant questing impulse and all of that stuff, and we should. But that's just one element. It's just one element in what makes a composer a great composer, and Saint-Saëns had all the other ones. He had lots of those elements, and his music is absolutely wonderful. And so I present the 5 greatest Saint-Saëns recordings, and he's been recorded a lot, so that we can have a really lovely, warm, snuggly appreciation of his genius. Yes, genius. Tovey be damned. So first, the complete Études, played by Piers on Hyperion. This is such a wonderful record. Saint-Saëns is not known as a composer for solo piano, particularly, and he wrote wonderful piano pieces. He wrote wonderful piano concertos, so how could he not? And he was a serious pianist. Apparently, he practiced scales for like 2 hours every day for his entire life or something crazy like that. But his etudes are delightful. There's some just for left hand, and then there's generalized etudes, and one of them is based on the finale of his Egyptian concerto, which I just adore. It's actually my favorite of all the piano concertos. Really, they're fun and brilliant, and Piers plays them gorgeously. It's just one of those hidden gems of a recording that you're going to really, really, really like, and they've never been done better. So yes, the complete piano etudes, you must hear them. Next, the opera Samson and Delilah. Oh yeah, Samson and Delilah. What a terrific thing this is. Actually, Saint-Saëns wasn't sure whether it was going to be an opera and oratorio. You can do it either way. It works perfectly well when you stage it. And of course, when you stage it, you get to destroy the set at the very end when Samson brings down the temple and kills all the Philistines, which is just a wonderful scene. It's a fabulous scene. The Delilah and the high priest do they're having their bacchanal, which is a perfect canon, by the way. Saint-Saëns was, nothing if not orderly and neat. He may have been a little bit too orderly to do a real bacchanal, but actually the bacchanal episode, the ballet, which is played separately, often as not, as a tone poem, is wonderfully steamy, sort of in a hoochie-coochie kind of way. You've got this terrific rhythm of the timpani, bump, 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 do 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 it's just really wonderful. Anyway, so that's a terrific opera, and the recording, the choice recording is John Vickers, Rita Gorr, Georges Prêtre on Warner. It's the classic version. All the others have issues. it's odd how difficult it seems to be to pull this thing off. You need two great principals. Rita Gorr is one of the great unsung French singers of her era. Her tone is firm and rich, and she's sexy and terrific. And John Vickers is John Vickers. He sounds like John Vickers. It doesn't matter what he's doing, whether it's Peter Grimes or Tristan or whatever, but he's heroic, a wonderful Samson, and Prêtre keeps it all moving, and they die very effectively. There could have been more tam-tam crashes at the end, but what the hell? It's really a wonderful performance. The latest remastering did not sound so good. I think the tapes are wearing out a little bit there, but you can get an older one probably pretty easily. And either way, I mean, the performance is the performance. It's just fabulous. Then we've got the Organ Symphony, Symphony number 3. Well, his most popular large work for sure. And this is a no-brainer. It's Charles Munch with the Boston Symphony on RCA. I mean, there are a few great recordings of the Organ Symphony. There certainly are. There's Munch's, there's Ormandy's, there's Martinon, there's Paul Paret. I mean, yeah, there's some good ones. But Munch in Boston, that's the one. Always has been, both for sound and interpretation. Absolutely tremendous. And then there's Saint-Saëns' most famous work. Well, at least for most people, the Danse Macabre, tiny little 6-minute tone poem, absolutely perfect in the way it's written. It was actually originally a song, and the words are really stupid, and it sounds absolutely terrible in its song form. But as a tone poem, it was wonderful. It caused a riot at its first performance because Parisian audiences have nothing to do. They're not there for the music. It's like going to the hockey games for the fights. They would go to the opera or the symphony concerts to have a riot. And the reason for the riot was that the work employed the xylophone for one of the first times ever. And that freaked people out for some reason. I mean, it happened during the Franck D minor symphony, too, because that symphony had an English horn, which freaked people out. Really, seriously. Anyway, it was radical when it was written, and it's so much fun. It just gets the job done absolutely perfectly. You've got the clock striking 12, and then death strikes up the violin, and then the skeletons come out and play the xylophone on their rib cages, and dawn happens with the rooster crowing, and it's all over with in like 6 minutes. It just couldn't be better. Absolutely marvelous. And the recording to end all recordings is Eugene Ormandy with the Philadelphia Orchestra on Sony. I mean, it's stereo, it's luscious, it's fabulously detailed. The playing is gorgeous. It's incredible. Absolutely phenomenal. And you wouldn't think, like, for a little 6-minute piece, he lavishes so much love and attention and care. And it's just goes to show when really great interpreters play fun music with the attention and dedication that it deserves, what amazing results you get. And last but not least, Saint-Saëns' most famous piano concerto number 2. It's not my favorite, but it's the most famous one, and it's lots of fun. It's just a great piece. With Arthur Rubinstein and Alfred Wallenstein on RCA. It's such a fine performance. It really is. And, it just, when you compare it to all of the others that are out there, there's an elegance and a swagger to this performance that is just so unmissable and inimitable. It really is. I mean, especially the second movement, the scherzo. I mean, it's an interesting concerto formally because it begins with a slowish movement and then it speeds up. You've got this light as a feather scherzo and then this whirling tarantella finale. But that second movement has that fabulous tune. Well, you know how it goes. There we go. That was better. Anyway, when you get to that, so many performances just blast through it insensitively. But, Rubinstein gets it. There's this, you're strolling down the Champs-Élysées in Paris, and the accompaniment dum ba da dum. It's got to slow down a little and have a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, a little bit of fun to it, a little bit, like I said, swagger. That's the word. Dum ba da dum ba da. You can't exaggerate it. It has to be done with taste and subtlety. Because if you exaggerate it, then it just turns vulgar. But if you get it right, and Rubinstein nails it, I mean, people should have to be like tied to a chair and forced to listen to that as an example of what great interpretation is. Knowing the work, knowing the style, knowing the atmosphere the composer, wants, and knowing how to realize it to perfection. It's just incredible. And so those are the 5 greatest Saint-Saëns recordings, and you really ought to contribute some of your own so that people can explore this wonderful composer in greater depth. He deserves the love and attention because it's great music. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.